Thank you very much. I now take the opportunity to request the chairperson of Nike, Mr. Tilson Manyoni, to give us introductory remarks. Thank you.
That's the problem of being vertically challenged. You must adjust the mic. Thank you, Program Director. Honorable Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. Thank you. That's better. I must repeat myself now. Honorable Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Professor Blade Nzimande, Nike Council members, Nike CEO, Dr. Mlungisi Cele, Acting Director General, Mr. Dan du Toit, DSI Executive Management, distinguished guests and fellow stakeholders. We wish to congratulate the Minister for his appointment as a Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. As a semistic advisory body, Nike is ready and committed to support the Minister by fulfilling our legislative functions and as well as our policy directives. Honorable Minister, we look forward to a renewal and reposition of Nike to ensure that we can play a pivotal role in supporting your key strategic goals and objectives in line with the mandate of the 7th administration. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the launch of the 2024 South African Science, Technology, Innovation STI Indicators Report. The theme for this year is measuring science, technology, innovation to guide their contribution to the socio-economic development of our country. This theme is in keeping with the 2019 white paper on STI, which set the long-term policy direction for the South African government to ensure a growing role for science, technology, and innovation in a more thriving and inclusive society. The white paper focuses on using STI to accelerate inclusive economic growth, make the economy more competitive, and improve people's daily lives. The white paper and the 2022 Dakar Plan, which is the implementation plan, have defined a clear path and expanded the role of Naki, including monitoring and evaluation. In this regard, we take the 2024 STI Indicator Report as an important tool in monitoring the system, highlighting progress, challenges, and areas of improvement. The CEO's presentation today will elaborate on these key areas. Honorable Minister, on behalf of the Nike Council, I wish to acknowledge Dr. Cele and his team for their outstanding effort in producing this year's indicators report. And I must emphasize that Dr. Cele has led from the front with self-assurance in producing a commendable STI indicators report. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I wish, as we reflect on the insights from the 2024 STI indicators report, let us harness its findings to inform our actions, drive progress, and unlock the full potential of South African innovations ecosystem. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I was hoping that you were going to introduce the Minister, but I do think that everyone knows the Minister, so there's no need for introductions. What an emphatic yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, may we please put together our hands as we welcome our Honorable Professor Blayden Nzimande, our Minister of the Department of Science and Innovation, as he comes through to the stage to address us. Thank you.
Program Director, Ms. Funeka Khumalo, thank you very much. Our acting DG of the Department of Science and Innovation, Mr. Dan du Toit, Chairperson of the National Advisory Council on Innovation, Mr. Tilson Manyoni, and thanks for your welcoming remarks. The CEO of the National Advisory Council on Innovation, Dr. Mlungisi Cele, DDGs and other senior officials from my department, representatives of our entities and science councils who are here, representatives of academia and business, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I should also, by the way, recognize the members of the council. My apologies on that. You are very important, particularly on such occasions. We dare not forget about you and the important work that you are doing. I'm really very honored to be addressing you on this important occasion, which is the launch of the 2024 Science, Technology and Innovation Indicators. The theme for this year's launch is measuring science, technology and innovation to guide their contribution to socio-economic development. Indeed, a very important theme. This theme, amongst others, emphasizes the critical importance of accurate and comprehensive measurement for understanding the true impact of science, technology, and innovation on South Africa's development path. There is no doubt that robust indicators and data-driven insights are essential for identifying areas of strength and weakness, informing evidence-based policy decisions, and ultimately for optimizing the returns on investment in science, technology, and innovation. What I like most, by the way, about these indicators is that we are not afraid to reflect on ourselves and to measure ourselves. That is very important, so that we see who we really are, so that we are able to improve and perform better. This is why the context for the Science, Technology and Indicators report derives from our 2019 White Paper on Science, Technology and Innovation, which mandates the National Advisory Council on Innovation, NACI, to monitor and evaluate the performance of our national system of innovation. It is worth mentioning that NACI has aligned its approach to the 2024 STI Indicators report with the 2020 NSI Monitoring and Evaluation Framework, which covers enablers, flows and linkages, outputs and impacts, information on sectoral and provincial systems of innovation has been added. The report gives an overview of our system and is intended to stimulate further research on topics of national interest to inform the development of effective evidence-based policies and strategies. Over and above this, I also expect NACI to propose practical actions on how to transform our STI landscape. You should not be afraid to do so, including along the lines of gender and race, further ensuring that young people from working class and poor backgrounds are assisted to become scientists or science practitioners. In fact, I wish to formally propose here. I'm sorry, Chair and the CEO, that I didn't even tip you about this, because I wanted to deliberately ambush you so that you will stand up where you are. I really wish to formally propose that NACI consider convening an urgent summit on transformation within our national system of innovation. Too many anecdotes that I'm getting and things that I am observing that people continuously raise these matters. Now, NACI should be done. I also didn't warn you as my acting DG. NACI actually is very well placed as the entity or council to actually lead this. I now wish to reflect on some of the key aspects of the 2024 STI indicators without stealing the thunder from the CEO. As it relates to human resources development for STI, the report informs us that South Africa has made significant progress in developing human resources in the research and innovation sector. Enrollment in our public universities have increased by 12% between 2012 and 2021, from 950,000 to 1.01 million. Over the same period, the number of graduates grew 41%, from 165,986 to 233,257. By 2020, also interestingly enough, half of the population aged 20 and above had completed secondary education, which is a significant milestone, especially for those of us of our age who know where we come from as a country. Looking at the National Senior Certificate, 83% of learners passed the National Senior Certificate examination in 2023, with 40% achieving a bachelor pass. But I'm still concerned that we still do not have enough numbers of those completing matric who at least get a minimum of 60% in STEM disciplines, which is what we need, not only just for high-end science skills. That also becomes an obstacle, by the way, even in certain programs in technical and vocational education and training. Indeed, the representation of female academic staff members in South Africa's higher education institutions increased from 46% in 2010 to 52% in 2021, showing a lot of progress, which means that women academics now are the majority in our university system. This is indeed a very important achievement that we should celebrate. Malibongwe. Igama lamakhosikazi. Okay, I heard you keeping quiet when I say that. Over the same period, the share of Black African academic staff increased from 27% to 43%, indicating significant racial transformation in the academic sector. As it relates to research output, I will just point out briefly, because the CEO is going to be talking to these things. The report informs us that South Africa's research input has significantly increased, with the number of scientific publications rising from 3,693 in the year 2000 to 27,208 in 2022, representing a global share that reached 1% in 2018. Number of publications from universities have also been increasing steadily. The production of scientific journal articles per academic staff member has also more than doubled, from 0.47 articles per person in 2005 to 1.19 in 2022. South Africa's scientific publications have shown a positive trend in terms in terms of citation impact in particular. A significant percentage of papers have featured in the top 1% of frequently cited papers, ranging from 2.4% in agricultural sciences to 14.1% in natural sciences. As it relates to research and digital infrastructure, the report informs us that South Africa invested 2.4 billion rand in national research infrastructure between 2015-2016 and 2019-2020. Additional investments of 1.2 billion rand were made in the National Equipment Program between 2014-15 and 2022-2023. That's financial years. Also important is that an investment of 670 million was made into our technology stations program between 2017-18 and 2021-22, and 814 million was invested into the Small Enterprise Development Agency technology program between 2018-19 and 2022-2023. To my Chief of Staff, I like giving instructions in these gatherings because you won't say I didn't. I want to get much closer to the technology stations, amongst other things. I want to familiarize myself even more. Some will say, wow, who have been a minister for the past 5 years, why are you only saying it now? Those in the know, they will know. Okay? Those in the know, they will know. Now that my shoulders are free of other problems, now I have all the time to focus on science, technology, and innovation. South Africa went from 63rd on the Inclusive Internet Index in 2018 to 54th in 2022. Also, the country's e-government development index rose from 0.49% in 2012 to 0.74 in 2022. Now, this is very important, by the way, though we still have a long way to go. The strangest thing I always point out, as a former Minister of Higher Education and Training as well, is that if someone applies for a job as a director in the Department of Higher Education and Training, usually you have to go to the police station to certify copies of your certificates. That you have got this diploma, you have got this degree, and then you have got maybe an honors degree. You go and queue in a police station, often, to sign and endorse certificates for a job that is in the Department of Higher Education and Training, a department that has got all this evidence, in any case, that you are actually presenting to it. All the records are actually with the department. That we are still doing this is something that really just, it means that the issue of e-government services is very important. It's very important. Why waste this time to prove to you that I've got the certificates which you have in your records? The Department of Higher Education and Training has got all those certificates. As a matter of fact, even if you are applying for a job in Home Affairs, your sister department has that. You need to press a button. Does this person has this or that, rather than all this? So the issue of e-government is a very, very important matter. Now, as it relates to innovation in the manufacturing sector, the report informs us importantly that manufacturing exports increased by 11.7%, from 462 billion rands to 499 billion rands in 2021. Sorry, I'm looking for the year before, I can't find it. Anyway, and by 11.2% from 499 billion to 558 billion in 2022. Similarly, medium and high technology exports of 263.2 billion in 2022 were 12.2% higher than the 234.6 billion in 2013. Now, this is an important indicator in terms of our industrialization, especially in medium and high technology sectors. I know some people today who call themselves economists. They say, no, there is no need for South Africa to focus on industrializing. Yes, they say so. Because now these things are done by machines, it doesn't create jobs and all that. I disagree with that very strongly, but there are economists who are telling us that, and we must focus on the services sector of the economy. Now, I'm very glad that we are doing work on this and that there is investment that is going into manufacturing. Digitization as well. There's been a 19% compound annual growth rate in digitization, patenting between 2011 and 2022, and a substantial increase in publications. The focus on digitalization, nanotechnology, and biotechnology, which accounted for 67.86% of patent applications in manufacturing-related emerging technologies in 2022, indicates a strategic emphasis on developing cutting-edge technologies that can support the sector's expansion and economic contribution. In the area of public science and technology engagement, according to our own survey as the Department of Science and Innovation on the South African public's relationship with science, 2/3 of South Africans are interested in science and technology, and they take pride in the country's achievements in these fields. I noticed that the HSRC has done some work on this, especially the attitude of South Africans towards science, something, by the way, that is also very important. While about 60% of respondents were aware of science achievements, some individuals expressed concerns about the pace of change and potential job losses. However, despite these concerns, trust in scientists, universities, and research organizations remains high. Now, that's something to be welcomed, because usually scientific knowledge competes with all other kinds of knowledge that are doing rounds, including fake news, by the way. Those of us in politics who get so irritated sometimes, I think rightly so in many instances, Sompis. You know, they write an article about you a year ago, then they post it again this year, as if it's a new article. And everybody has forgotten, because we have all been swallowing all this information. One of the analysts in a publication that I read quite a lot, which comes out daily, called Consortium News, I forget the name of this person. He says, it's a pity today in the world we no longer have journalism. We now have what we call, sorry to the journalists, channalism. Because you're just churning out things, you know, anyhow. And science is competing with that, by the way, in so many respects and in so many areas. But it's not only that. We know also that there are people who still believe that vaccination is wrong. Maybe there are some amongst us. But that's a challenge that we have in order to deal with this. Let me then move towards raising the last 4 or 5 points by focusing on challenges that are still facing our system. Much as the progress outlined, that I've just outlined, and also outlined in detail in this report, is welcome, there is a lot more that still needs to be done to change the demographics in particular of our researchers and scientists, including at the highest level of practice. Surely it cannot be that 30 years into our democracy, some of the key awards does not reflect our demographics. Another related challenge is that of strongly supporting research and development capacity and the strengthening of STI in our historically disadvantaged universities. We can't just take this as usual. Working together with our Deputy Minister, Ms. Nomalungelo Gcina, I intend to pay more attention on these matters and let NACI and all of our entities assist us. I have already given NACI a task. Can you please convene a summit on transformation in our national system of innovation and do an honest reflection of where we are, where there are snags, why are we having these snags, and what is to be done in order to deal with that. By the way, there is another matter that has been of serious concern to me from my experience in higher education. There are just too many disturbing anecdotes and anecdotal evidence that there is increasing practice of people writing master's theses and PhD dissertation for others. This thing has been troubling me quite a lot because it's got an impact on our own STI through the quality of our system. Now, unfortunately, I'm no longer Minister of Higher Education. But since I'm still Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, I would like also to challenge NACI. Why don't you go to the Council for Higher Education and both of you actually just analyze the nature and extent of this problem of people writing for others? There was something that was exposed at UKZN some years back, and I'm told that that possibly might be the tip of the iceberg. We can't afford that because the integrity of our STI, indeed, we do lots of our STI in our universities, is at stake. I won't say other things that also worries me today. Maybe it will tell my age. In my time when I was an academic, I started teaching in 1985 at a university. You would never be a professor without a PhD. Never, ever those days. Now there's this thing called professors of practice. What is that? Who is a professor of not practice? No, there are people just given, because we have written hundreds of articles as a journalist, then we are a professor of practice. I think we need also to, the message I'm sending, we need to protect the integrity of our system. That is actually very important. Certain things we may regard them as old-fashioned, but they aren't old-fashioned, really. The quality is very important. I'm very concerned about that. This report also draws our attention to other challenges. That South Africa's research and development intensity, as measured by gross expenditure of on R&D as a percentage of GDP, stood at 0.61%. In fact, before COVID, we were 0.79%. Then we've gone down after COVID. And it looks like the primary reason is poor investment by the private sector, declining investment by the private sector. Even when there's been a slight increase as a result of the statistics I was referring to earlier, investment in manufacturing, financial intermediation, real estate, and business services. Patent activity also still remains a challenge. And I would like to say to my science councils, please ensure that we don't have a leakage in this. Someone spends 4, 5, 6, 7 years at the CSIR, discovers important things, but then the person simply resigns, and patent those things that he or she was working with. In essence, that's a CSIR patent. Also, it would be helpful that even NACI, you benchmark how do other countries, for instance, protect publicly funded research for purposes of patents. We are not saying you can't partner with the private sector to come with money or to do work together, but you just had unstoppable leakage. By the way, this leakage is also huge in the African continent. The amount of knowledge that is stolen from our continent by the North, not transferred, stolen by the North, is just completely unacceptable. This is an issue. I know President Mbeki also has been talking about these things. So it's very important also that we deal with this. Venture capital investments, the reports make the point that South Africa's venture capital investment are concentrated in the Western Cape and Gauteng, with growth slowing in 2020 and declining by 10.2% between 2021 and 2022. And the country's share of African venture capital decreased to 14% in 2022, surpassed by Nigeria if one were to make a comparison in the continent. This worrisome trend suggests a need for decisive interventions to boost the venture capitalist investment ecosystem. In fact, this is all about funding of research and development in our country. The fiscus is declining, private sector is declining, partly, yes, as a result of the state of our economy. But NACI needs to help us. What else do we need to do in order to protect investment into these areas? As it relates to poverty, unemployment, and inequality, the report makes the point that South Africa's socio-economic crisis is both a cause and a result of the low investment in research, development, and innovation. So in other words, with less money available, there is less money for science. At the same time, less money for science means an economy that's not growing according to its potential. Because the two things are dialectically linked in the language that I know better. Now, I want to say this, that as I close, this report provides us with rich data. I wish all of us actually would engage with it in whatever field or area we are in and see what it says about the state of things in our own. Following our budget vote debate, I want to end with this piece of information. The Portfolio Committee on Science, Technology and Innovation, after deliberations, debate on our budget vote, amongst other things, submitted a report to the National Assembly through the Speaker. And this report was adopted on the 25th of July this year. So this is fresh. Then I got a letter 2 days ago from the Speaker of the National Assembly, directed to me, informing me that this report has been adopted by the National Assembly from the Portfolio Committee. And what is the report saying? And I quote, it says the minister should, A, continue his efforts with National Treasury, the private sector and international partners to secure additional funding for the science and innovation portfolio. This is the Speaker now. B, enhance collaboration with other government departments on matters of common interest, which means STI. C, prioritize transformation, which will address the committee's concerns around having a transformed, representative, and inclusive science system. D, provide a detailed account on the impact of the budget cuts on the department's planned performance as well as that of its entities. E, together with the committee and the department, consider facilitating a national dialogue on the importance of the STI. Okay? Now, the nicety of being a minister is that now this recommendation, unquote by the way, this recommendation, am asking Naki to do one of the things that the Speaker is actually instructing me to do. But this is positive, that Parliament is actually talking like this about underfunding, about the need for transformation, and facilitating a national dialogue, and working together with other departments, which is what we intend to escalate this time around. As the minister, as I say, I fully agree with this. And we must therefore ensure that these STI indicators do not just become an instrument for planning and resource allocation, but also that they enable us to transform our national system of innovation to be a true reflection, amongst others, of our country's profile in terms of race, class, and gender. And I want to congratulate Naki. Really well done on this excellent report. But that it is an excellent report does not mean it must not be engaged, albeit critically as well, by all of us who are in the system or who have an interest in the system. I thank you very much.
Minister, thank you so much for your address. Very incisive. But you know, the one thing about coming with a prepared document is that you are prepared, number one. You've gone through it. But the disadvantage about it, Mr. Manyoni, yeah. All right. I will. Okay, before I finish my point, let me announce this, that the minister has another engagement. He will be leaving quite soon. However, before he leaves, we will allow for questions, so that he's in a position then to respond to those questions. And once that has happened, we will take a photo with him as Naki Council, and then take 5 minutes break, and then reconvene. The CEO will lead us, in the presentation of the report. So my point, Minister, is that when you come here, like myself, with the notes and all of that, you come here prepared, which is good. But the disadvantage is the fact that you read what is written, even when you see that that's not the right thing. You see that this is not Funeka Khumalo, it's Charity Mbileni Morema, but you call this person Funeka Khumalo. So I want to correct you on that. That's that. But also, equally so, I think on my side as well, to say my apologies to Dr. Padi Lihotla, as I said, Prof. or Mr. I was not 100% sure. But the good thing is that at least he's in between Mr. and Prof. And then one of the things that I wanted to say, Minister, that is also very incisive that you touched on is on the technology stations. You know, the strategic nature of the technology stations is such that it is within the universities, and mostly in universities of technology. So, and it is because universities of technology, by their mission and mandate, they are supposed to advance technology. And when you look at where they are situated, in most cases, they're accessible to black majority. They service black majority. They provide product development, product designs, for innovators and entrepreneurs. They are technology diffusion instruments. But are they, and there's the question that you are asking, and we need to resolve it one way or the other as you delve deeper into that. Are they efficient enough? Are they effective? Are they transformative in nature? Are they able to service the very same people that you want to be serviced? When we talk about service delivery, we're not talking only about the roads and houses. We are talking about innovation as well. Seeing those ideas manifest into products and outcomes, and having an impact into society. So I'm very grateful that you touched on that. Thank you so much. So let me just then, I've already thanked you for providing us with an address, and now, as I indicated, I will allow for questions and answers before the minister leaves so that he's in a position then to respond. The floor is open, colleagues. I do think that the mic is roving. He says just a few. There's a question over there. Can somebody with the mic, please?
Good morning and good day to the Minister and Naki. Thank you very much for inviting us. My name is Colin and I'm an entrepreneur. As you know, entrepreneurs are like tuck shops. They do everything. But we do get to the level of the Pick n Pay, so we do grow, as entrepreneurs. Now, I did try and read this report, and I read about 63 pages, and I didn't see anything about software in the report. So I don't know whether the infrastructure part of this development and innovation thinks about software and software development, because that's a very important part of technology development. So maybe you can tell us how far is South Africa as far as software development is concerned. Has there been ever an antivirus registered in South Africa? What are the patent difficulties? It would be nice to use an antivirus from South Africa. So those type of things are very important, and I'm not seeing them in the report. Maybe you can say something about them. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I do think that you've developed an antivirus and you want it to be procured, isn't it? All right, thank you. There's a question at the back. There's a hand up at the back.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you to everyone today. My name is Marshall Nelson from the Youth Media Movement. Minister, thank you for this opportunity. I wanted to raise a concern in terms of our communities that doesn't have access to 4IR resources, like your 3D printing opportunities, which we are actually also doing, and we find it very difficult because we are competing with big institutions where most of our young people are unable maybe to access. What is the chances that there is an opportunity for us who are training, small training community institutions, who are able to get some support so that we can roll out these programs that is in the heart of the communities and maybe support more of our youngsters that is unable to access to university standards? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. The last question, please, or comment. There it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Honorable Minister and colleagues here. My name is Sunil Ganesh. I'm with a company called SAP. Minister, this report is very impressive. It's a record of history. How do we ensure that we make use of the latest technologies to drive that evidence-based policy making, to encourage further innovation, science and technology development? That's one point. And the other quick subset point, I was very happy to see the mention of the e-government report. I sit on that expert group of the United Nations, one of 2 Africans, I must say, and it was very encouraging to see that we jumped almost 40 odd places. We need to continue on that trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Minister, are you able to come to the podium to respond? Thank you.
My apologies, Ms. Mbileni Mulema. I really apologize. You are right, by the way, about the disadvantage sometimes of speeches. Although I don't want to demotivate my speechwriter. He's sitting right in front of me. He's watching me and looking what am I going to say, because he sent me the first version, I think it was 12 midnight, and the second version was around 6 in the morning and so on. But my apologies about that. Well, all these questions, I think they are better answered actually by the CE. Because if I take the issue of IT as well as innovation in that sector and so on, some of those things are contained in the report. They may not exactly be addressing what you are saying, but they are actually about that. So I wouldn't want to go into that and spoil the presentation. Also, by the way, if you are a minister, you are entitled to avoid difficult questions and just push them to people who are. But we are raising a very important matter, because in the points that we are making is South Africans as innovators in a whole range of areas. And my own philosophy, by the way, influenced by being in this Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, is that as Africans continentally, we should not just be consumers of knowledge produced in other parts of the world. We also can produce our own knowledge that can actually help in the rest of the world. To me, one symbol of that, by the way, is the creepy crawling, which is a South African invention, but you find it in all parts of the world today. But there are other things as well. We were the first, by the way, to discover the first variant of COVID-19 here in South Africa, before the rest of the world knew about that. So we need the challenge, I think, and the message coming out of this is that we need to create an environment for innovation in our country. Partly the reason why our department, by the way, was changed to the old Department of Science and Technology to Department of Science and Innovation in the 6th administration was to emphasize the aspect of innovation. Sometimes when I debate with the CEO of the NRF, Professor Nerumondo, I always sometimes teasingly, but being serious, how much money of the NRF funding research goes to innovation or goes to something that then becomes innovation? Because I think that's a question we should all ask ourselves. But let me not be misread. Let me not be misread. I'm not saying all funding must go to innovation. Because, by the way, almost innovation itself doesn't start with the patent. It starts even with basic research. That's why some of the research of the NRF goes to basic research, which is actually very important. I am a great believer in basic research, including theory, by the way. I hear people sometimes dismissing theory. Theory is very important because it's the way you organize yourself, your mind, the work that you want to do, that also ultimately leads to innovation. So, but nevertheless, it is important to ask ourselves how much of our R&D goes to support innovation. It's something that is important that I'm reading from what we are saying. But then the CEO will be able to answer more specifically. The issue of communities accessing 4IR. This has been a subject of a number of recent commissions. There's been the Presidential Commission on 4IR, which I would urge people to engage with and to read. It's supposed to be implemented by all of us, but I know the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies is trying to lead on that, looking into academies and so on. On our side, as the Department of Science and Innovation, we've got what we call grassroots innovation, which precisely is aimed at engaging communities. And also to say, by the way, innovation does not only come from high end. High end is very important. Your doctorates, your postdocs, and others who may not be even doing that, but who are innovative. But innovation also is at the grassroots level. That we have got programs to try and harness that, which relates fundamentally, how do we harness creativity in communities and be able to identify those and be able to support them. I know also that the Department of Higher Education, under Minister Pando at the time, had commissioned work on the implication of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, implications for post-school education and training. And once you pose that, it then, of course, relates to what is happening at schooling level that is actually supporting what we are trying to do. So it is very important, therefore, that we have to look at every other thing that we are doing, especially education. If you take our decadal plan also seeks to address some key issues around the future of work and the future of society in the light of new technologies and all that. As a psychologist, I'm very worried about some unintended consequences of technology. Today, you can knock and get into a household and find a family of 5 sitting around television in the lounge, if you're lucky, because the younger ones are usually in their bedrooms, using their technologies. But they could be sitting, the family of 5, with a TV open. None of them are watching television, and none of them are talking to each other. They are all looking at their smartphones. What is going to be the likely consequences on the society that is evolving in the light of all this? Part of what we want to be looked at is that, precisely, the future of society. Also the future of work. There are big debates about work. There's lots of work that we are doing about what we call just transitions, like a just energy transition, that we are able, if we transition to new forms of energy, that we don't shut down the Mpumalanga province, which is entirely dependent on the mining of coal. And in fact, almost all our electricity has been coming from Mpumalanga, largely, because that's where the coal-fired stations have been. How do we make sure that then, if we make that transition, we are able to retrain and people do not lose jobs? What was the last point, by the way? Huh? Oh, e-government. Oh, that was just supporting what I was saying, isn't it? About the importance of e-government. E-government is very serious, by the way. And that is why one of the problems we are faced with as government is that people who are corrupt are opposed to technology. Yes. Being frustrated on simple things that could happen. But some people undermine it if they are corrupt, because technology is likely to do away with some. If you ask me, I'll write a book maybe one day about NSFAS, because that was one of my biggest problems. NSFAS doesn't have money, but even when you had money, you just want to bring new technologies, digital technologies, lots of resistance from both who are inside and who are outside. Because if you actually introduce technology, we are going to be able to eliminate a lot of corruption that is actually happening. I'm using NSFAS as an example. I shouldn't be, because I'm no longer responsible for it. But the point that I'm making is that e-government is also important in fighting against corruption. We are not saying new technologies are completely immune, but they go a long way in fighting things that we should actually be fighting as government. Now, I'm sorry to do this to you, Chair, no, CE, but it's your fault that now I take this having to answer questions, take questions, but I don't mind doing it. But honestly, I would urge that let's listen to the details of this report from the CE, because it's very important. Thank you very much. Ke a leboga.
Thank you so much, Minister, for the Q&A. Colleagues, I think it's time we allow the Minister to go, and we will break for 5 minutes and take some pictures with him in the meantime while some of you are having coffee, tea, and some bevs outside. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, comrades, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad that my team managed to get the bulk of our reports in the to the minister's speech. So, especially the difficult aspects of the work. So what we are trying to, maybe let me just speak to this slide, colleagues. It's important to appreciate this report as having evolved within a particular context. And that context, we all know, it was under the 6th administration. But this report is going to be engaged and utilized under different circumstances of the GNU. So, but also there are global contexts. There's a global context that we need to pay particular attention. And we do not have time to remind each other what are the elements of that global context and what are the trends that we need to appreciate, which are informing the context without the national system of innovation. The report seeks to enhance the role of NEC, as you would have heard both the chairperson and the minister, as the monitoring and evaluation institution of the NSI. So if you read page 25 of the white paper, that's where we have directly quoted. So we don't want and expect contestation about this. It's what the white paper says, that NEC must serve as an M&E institution. It's set out in there, and this is what this report therefore seeks to do. As a tool of monitoring the NSI, but we also wish to present it as a resource to researchers, to students, to anyone who's interested to understand how the South African National System of Innovation is progressing, structured, and moving. But it is also about promoting engagement, reflection, and evidence-informed policy making, as you would also have heard the minister suggesting. So that's by the way of locating this report, colleagues. We have a framework that was finalized in the 2020 NSI monitoring and evaluation framework, which is used to frame this report. So whatever the weaknesses that you may pick up and identify partly have to do with the nature of the framework, but we can't blame the framework if there are issues of quality or maybe we have poorly dealt with data and maybe the quality and so forth. But this is the framework, the organizing framework of the report. I must also indicate, colleagues, that because a lot of you have been with us, have been journeying with us, we are not going to repeat some of the key observations we've been making in the last 3 to 4 years. Particularly last year, we had 2 major events. When we launched the report, the 2023 indicators report last year, we made some key observations. But most importantly, when the president convened the presidential plenary, there are some key observations which we flagged to the top leader of the country, including the question of financing or investment that the minister has flagged. The second issue, which we're not going to repeat it, but it's still confronting us, is about the inability of the higher education sector to attract younger researchers, while it's facing a real threat of losing the established researchers. So that conundrum remains a big challenge that the system needs to confront. So we're not repeating that, because those are challenges that we're just saying to all of us that those challenges remain. What we thought we should try and do, colleagues, at least the first part of this presentation, Even if the slides here are merely indicating or providing signals of where we need to be paying more attention as a system, I think that should be enough, because maybe the report might have not delved much into this question of the relationship between STI, the economy, and society. But if we all remember what the president articulated as priorities, at least of the state in the next 5 years, it's really about inclusive and sustainable economic or socio-economic development. It's about addressing poverty, and it's about developing a capable state. So we thought maybe it's important to also locate our system within a broader international STI systems or broader global social system. And of course, there may be, rightfully so, critique about why we have utilized or why are we using this measure to locate it. But nevertheless, that's an instrument we could find. We are also underscoring the point that science is an international enterprise. It's interconnected. Our system is interconnected to the continent, to the regional, continental, and international STI systems. It's part of it. But it's also intersecting with other social systems, whether it's economy and so forth. What you could observe here is that maybe with an exception of crisis, maybe tax policy, a lot of indicators that were being measured against at a global level, we are struggling. So out of 67 countries, we are number 46 in terms of our scientific infrastructure. We're not doing well, colleagues. We are not doing well. We are number 59 in terms of technology infrastructure. So the system must have a conversation about this, while recognizing that as a consequence of our previous investments, we are a host to some major scientific projects like SKA, which we must continue to remind ourselves that we are hosting that huge scientific telescope here, partly because of what we have invested previously. But we are also poised to develop the vaccine manufacturing capability as a consequence of some of the scientific investments we've made. The minister alluded to how we assisted to save so many lives globally during COVID, partly because of scientific investments that we have made. But nevertheless, we are not where we ought to be. And this underscores the need for us to pay more attention. So that's the message we want. But we also want to see progress across. Not just because these dimensions, these relationships are interrelated. So the second dimension that we wanted to introduce, at least we started in the last two reports, to look at new exports as an indicator of some form of innovation. And maybe there are 2 points that we want to make here, at least, when you look at the notion of extensive margin, the new exports, products and destinations, that we have observed some large positive contributions in 2016, 17 and 2021, which drove export growth, while limited positive contributions in other periods hindered expansion. Now, when you look at intensive margin in respect of existing exporters and products, significant negative contributions in 2014-15 and 2019-20 led to export decline. while moderate positive contributions in other periods supported growth. Therefore, it is in our we are convinced that innovation and diversification are important as part of us if we were to encourage new exporters, products, destinations, which may play a vital important if we were to promote export growth, albeit the limitations. And of course, if we want to support existing export markets and products, it's important to have policies that are meant to support existing exporters and products if we were to avoid further decline. And the report does provide details around what we are talking about. So in essence, colleagues, we are arguing that the broader question or the broader point we're seeking to make as a sector is that innovation has a role to play in stimulating economic growth, but also development. The minister did speak to this slide, so I'm not going to repeat it, about manufacturing exports, medium and high-tech exports. So it's in the report, so let me save you. Maybe except the one on employment, because the key point that we want to raise here is that whereas we all understand the unemployment problem that is facing South Africa, the evidence that we could gather, if you're looking at medium and high tech, is that whereas formal manufacturing employment declined in 2020 and 2021, but then it increased in 2020 in 2022, reaching a level 5% higher than in 2013. Employment in medium and high-tech manufacturing grew slowly, with an 8% increase from 2013 to 2020, marginal increase in 2022 compared to 2021. And the share of medium high-tech employment in total manufacturing employment, it increased from 30.8% in 2013 to 33.1% in 2022, with a notable rise since 2017. Of course, we don't want to make a meal out of this, and we're being cautious about that. But it's just to indicate a potential for employment creation if more efforts could be put in terms of developing or investing in medium and high-tech manufacturing sectors. So there is a potential for employment to be created. Now, another dimension, of course, the issue around technology balance of payment, which is a big issue, is that South Africa's payments abroad for intellectual property use have declined significantly since 2017, reflecting lower level investment levels due to slow economic growth. But on the positive side, what we have observed is that the technology receipts have been on the increase since 2020. As a result, a ratio of payments over receipts decreased from 14.9% in 2012 to 7.0% in 2022. It's a welcome development. If we have to think about the nature of the technologies that we developed and the extent to which others are finding it attractive to buy some of our technologies. And then, of course, it's also important to look at the broader notion of human development. Mrena Padi has been saying a lot about these different dimensions about human development in South Africa, poverty, and how we are tackling this slide, and we are aware of where we are. Whereas if if we compare ourselves with India, we may appear to be, doing better than it, but we're falling behind Brazil, Russia, and China, our BRICS partners. We remain weak in life expectancy and economic growth compared to BRICS. So again, the slide simply reminds of what we know about our human condition, that's not at the level at which it ought to be. And of course, I'm sure you are going to have a discussion about how to deal with that. The minister did speak about this slide, colleagues, but maybe you can see it graphically. Because the way in the report we are treating this question around promoting public sector innovation. So we have just extracted the slide, but it's within the broader context of our drive to promote public sector innovation. So let's not spend time, because the minister has elaborated on it and some colleagues have already asked questions. And I guess so do this one on ICT. I think colleagues have also spoken about it. Maybe this one on municipal innovation maturity index, we can spend some time once we're done to discuss and explain, because I'm not so sure how many people are quite familiar with it. But essentially, the idea is if we want to improve service delivery, we want to explore the role that innovation can play in improving service delivery. There is, colleagues at UKZN have developed this index. It's got different dimensions to it. And these different dimensions, if a municipality scores an average of 2, that may indicate that in that particular municipality, the officials have some basic understanding of innovation. They have set out some innovation policies, but there is no evidence that such policies have been implemented. So that's an average. So in other words, that's a minimum you could look for. So you can clearly see here with this slide that a lot of our municipalities, they have a lot to do. We have looked at a number of municipalities that have agreed to participate in the survey. And then the different categories you can unpack, they look at different dimensions to it. So there's a lot of work that is being done. But again, it's about us as a system to look at what else may need to be done to use innovation to improve service delivery and improve basic services that are operated at a municipality level. Some of the big metros are not doing well, like eThekwini. You'll expect metropolis to be slightly better than some rural municipalities in terms of innovation, but evidence suggests otherwise. So we can elaborate on this, colleagues, later on. Of course, the minister did speak to this work as well, because it's about society and how society perceives SNT. So generally, 2/3 of the public are interested in, and they are proud of what has come out of the system. 60% said they are aware of STI's achievements. 75% of the public think SNT makes life easier, but they are also worried about the rapid change and job losses, which the minister spoke to. 60% are knowledgeable about traditional SNTs. They see benefits and they recognize, 45% recognize traditional medicine and think, 75% think SNT will make more interesting. So, but again, when you look at the different dimensions, for instance, you will see that a lot of people they see new technologies as having a negative impact in respect of their jobs. And for us colleagues, and then some, I think quite a lot as well, they see scientific advances as tending to benefit the rich more than the poor. Right? I mean, this is what our people think and see of what we do. Of course, the policymakers will then ask themselves questions as they design or redesign policies about how to think and deal with these concerns that people are pushing. So when we push artificial intelligence and all of this, we've got to also think about how ordinary people or generally people would view this. The issue that is a big concern globally, it's around trust in STI information, particularly post-COVID, where we have had in some countries the level of trust has really declined. But here, at least in South Africa, it's quite interesting that 2/3 of the people still trust scientists. 3/4 think scientists can improve their lives, half worry about honesty. So Raskin, I don't know what, but people, if you are a scientist, you're sitting here in the room, you must know that half of people you meet, they worry about your honesty. And then over 60%, they worry about secrecy and harm. Right? But what is also important for those who are working in universities and research organizations is there a high level of trust that people they have in these institutions. So they trust, and I'm very proud as well as part of this system that people, they trust our institutions, but it's what we do with that level of trust. 45% trust the corporate world, 42% trust religious leaders. Yeah, if you are like me, a public servant, you'll worry about that 38%. Especially Cosmos if you are at DSI. So, colleagues, we are encouraging you. The report delves a lot. So this first part we're just lifting, we're trying to encourage us to have a discussion about that relationship between STI, the economy and society, but also to reflect on what the system is doing in response to the broader societal challenges. But also we need to really lift the question of development in the same way that, when we are dealing about STI. When we engaged recently with our Chinese colleagues, I was surprised with the observation they made. I was taken aback, but I appreciate it because I thought it was an honest. They said the challenge in South Africa is that you tend to deal with STI in isolation of development. And they told me directly in my face, you as senior leaders, you don't link STI with development, which is an opposite in China, and that could also partly explain China's progress. But again, we are not going to repeat that, as I said, because when we had a presidential plenary in December, we did demonstrate this point. What we thought, colleagues, we should also do, because the report is 167 pages, so we're not going to deal with it. But to say that there are some interesting emerging new features of the system that we thought we should bring to your attention. The minister has touched some of those aspects. But it's important to indicate, as our report says, that our system remains relatively small, but it is productive if you use, amongst others, publications and sessions, our WorldShare and the scientific impact Even though Egypt has now taken over from us, we are number 2 in the continent. And Anastasius and others are saying, even though we need to be cautious about the decline, but if that trend continues, then we'll be in trouble. But we remain relatively productive, albeit our small size. We are also observing the social composition of the research workforce is changing, as the minister did allude to. We're seeing more women now than male researchers. But we are also seeing females patenting, right? So we're seeing an increased number of females who have generated patents. It's an interesting feature of the system, and we would like to see that transformation. And we're also seeing black researchers publishing more than they used to be. So again, that's changing the nature of knowledge production. So the nature of knowledge production and knowledge exploitation is changing, but not at the pace that we want, colleagues. But we're indicating these are new features or dimensions of what is emerging, the new character of the NSI. The minister talks about transformation, so I avoided to use transformation because we needed to allow the minister to use that concept. But another interesting feature, colleagues, even though we have said it before, but we need to reiterate because it's got implications. There is a decline of single authorship. But we're also observing an increased collaborations between South African researchers and researchers from the rest of the African continent. It's something that Cecil Masoga will know when we visited Kenya and others some years back. It was difficult to encourage our colleagues here in South Africa to collaborate with others in the rest of the continent. But we're now beginning to see increased collaboration, as well as collaborations with international partners. So this aspect, it's beginning to define the new character of NSI. But we need to reflect on what does it mean as we are moving from single authorship to international collaboration. We are also, by the way, observing that India and China are registering more patents here in South Africa. And then some have explained that this has to do with the type of incentives or how cheap our system. But these are some of the dimensions. Again, colleagues, it's another interesting feature of our system because our system starts from the pipeline. So learners attending quintile 1, 2, 3, those are non-fee paying schools, poorer schools, right? So we're seeing them closing the gap with the former Model Cs, which constitute quintile 4. So they achieve similar pass rates. It is an interesting picture, especially when you consider where we are coming from. But you still see a gap between these levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, with quintile 5 schools, where most of us are sending our kids to the private school. But I'm less focused. I'm focusing on progress that we're making, this emerging feature. And then, of course, the concern that the minister raised about 60% remains an issue. So between 2014 and 23, the number of students who achieved a pass of over 60% in mathematics increased from 30,000 to 38,000, showing a moderate annual growth rate of 2.6. I'm sure we would like to see more, but nevertheless, this is progress that we need to appreciate. Can't always be bashing ourselves. We appreciate if the needle is moving, even in it, we need to acknowledge but more needs to be done. So we have spoken about this, but this slide, it just gives you a graphic or the details around what we are now observing, the increase in female academics and the parity that we seem to have reached in the academic sector. And then again, we have referred to progress that we have made in transforming the social composition of the academic staff. I did speak to this to these dimensions. So, colleagues, as I said, we have made I think we have made a strong point about our investment challenge, and the minister made this point that we have a 1.5 growth expenditure as a percentage of GDP that we need to be attaining in 2030. We're not moving towards that objective. Instead, we are regressing. We have made that point, and business has contributed to a greater extent. So this information, what we want to, because what we have tried to do beyond simply reiterating the issue around business contributing negatively, we have tried to look at the environment within which business makes decisions. But maybe before we get to that, what we observed in 21-22, the improvements in business R&D expenditure to 26.4%, we observed that surge was driven by information technologies, medical sciences, material sciences, with manufacturing and services leading the growth. We are cautiously optimistic about that, but we want to observe whether this positive development will continue. So, colleagues, we did some work to try and understand this challenge that we've been reporting. And when you look at the aggregate R&D expenditure by firms, it fell from 2010. And some of the observations made is that the higher rates of firm, there's a higher rate of firm exiting from R&D than firm entry rates into R&D. Large firms and manufacturing firms remain the main drivers of the decline. And then, so there's been a decline in the number of R&D firms and in the share of all firms engaging in R&D, as well as a decline in the intensity of R&D within firm during this period. And also that there's a difference between R&D firms and non-R&D firms. That's where they are larger, the R&D firms are larger in terms of sales with larger firms, more likely to persist in R&D. They have higher levels of fixed capital. They employ more workers and pay higher wages. And they are particularly important for export of technologically sophisticated products. External acquisition of technology through licensing complements in-house R&D with firms that combine both approaches, experiencing stronger productivity, enhancing effects. So there's a detailed analysis. Again, it's available, colleagues. It's a first phase that we've completed. So we are going to look at phase 2 of that work because we want to adequately understand this dynamic around business investment in R&D. The minister did speak to this issue around venture capital investment. Again, we do not want to repeat it. We have made this point last year, that at a particular point, South Africa was doing well, but we have been overtaken by other countries in the rest of the continent. So, again, the report does provide shifts or indicate shifts in this. Maybe the last point which we need to emphasize, is that we have observed several high potential South African startups having to relocate outside of South Africa. And maybe we need to understand why is that the case. What should be done to retain, to make South Africa remain attractive to the startups. So again, colleagues, human resources for STI is a critical enabler and a foundation for the future. We've been making this point before. But maybe the point we would like to make this year, building on what I said at the beginning about the conundrum facing higher education in terms of replenishing the academic workforce, is that there's been a steady rise in permanent instructional research personnel at public universities. But what we've also, between 2010 and 2016, subsequently there's been a plateauing and a decline in academic staff headcount and full-time equivalent between 2016 and 2022. So the academic staff growth rates have experienced 2.1% compound average growth in permanent academic student enrollment growth rates. Especially if you look at postgraduates, they have grown at 2.7%, while undergraduate enrollments grew at 1.5%. I understand, Russell, we've been having discussions about these numbers, but the point that you would like the system to have a discussion about, we are not seeing growth in terms of the academic workforce, but student numbers, at least at the postgraduate level, are increasing. So what are the implications? And if you were to overlay that conundrum, which we flagged last year, then we need to have a particular discussion about what is happening in higher education institutions. So the other challenges that are being imposed by whether it's the fiscal environment, the austerity, and a range of other challenges are really demanding of us to have a conversation about what is happening there, colleagues. Okay, so let me not spend time, because the figures are there about the nature of engineering and, in terms of how many people have registered in the engineering fields or not. The minister did allude to the issues around student enrollment. Of course, we, in the sector that we find ourselves, I think there's been a sort of like a standard target of 30% set enrollment that we have always wanted to see. So the figures say in 2021, set enrollment were, constituted 29.4%. So in terms of growth, of course, we have seen some positive growth. The discussion that we may need to ask is whether should we go beyond 30%. So in other words, if you look at the share of said students as a proportion of the overall, is 30% sufficient for our context, for our future, or should we keep it? And then again, there are issues about whether we need to be, how do we balance? Where should we spend more emphasis, invest, and so forth, right? Again, we do not need to repeat what the minister said, but we have experienced some positive progress in terms of set graduation throughput rates, which increased from 17.8% in 2012 to 21.5% in 2021. So we did allude to this slide around what we're observing with Chinese and Indians registering here. So, maybe just to conclude, colleagues, we are repeating again. The report is 167 pages, right? So, we want here to encourage you or to introduce the different sections of the report or to create an appetite for you to go and engage more. And the minister said be as critical as possible as well. So what we're trying to do, maybe the three sections that we covered. One, the relationship between STI, the economy and society. There were some key points we were inviting you to think about. The second category is around what we characterize as an emerging NSI character. The minister referred to as transformation. So those positive dimensions of the system, how do we nurture, what do we do with them? Then the third one, it's really about what I would call the areas that require agent attention. It's about investment, it's about financing of the system, some aspects about human resources that we need to be paying particular attention around. It's our human condition, as South Africans. Those are the areas, infrastructure, those are the areas that require agent attention. And then maybe the fourth one is where we are located globally. How do we compare with the rest of the world in different areas, and where there are potential for us to make a meaningful contribution in addressing some of the pressing challenges, such as employment. So South Africa continues to experience some improvement in respect of STI, human resources, and then research and digital infrastructure investments are expanding. There is low research intensity and declining patent activities. They remain our concerns. Venture capital investment is diminishing. And then, of course, poverty, unemployment, inequality persists. To an extent that South Africa may need to adopt a comprehensive strategy focusing on how to increase investment in R&D, support startups and innovation, and fosters collaboration to drive sustainable economic growth and reduce poverty and inequality. Colleagues, we wish to present both the content of what the minister shared, which is a big part of the reports, and the different aspects that we have shared. And so formally, so the reports is handed over to you for you to engage, and we'll appreciate comments. Sorry, just before, Doc. Yes, we need to acknowledge, colleagues, so that before you start raising issues, let's acknowledge this work has been done by a huge team of experts, and we are very grateful to them. Professor Anastasius Porris, Mr. Aubrey Mpungose, Professor Dave Kaplan, Johan Muton, Zwandile Matigizela, Oliver Mtapuru, Petros Letaba, Stebisomien, Vijay Reddy, Kolan Makoba, and they were supported by members of the reference group, Claire Puseti, Rasigan Maharaj, Rebecca Maseremure, Krema Mbula, John Gabe, Omar, Godfrey Mashamba, Azza Jamin, Ahmed Bawa, and Badi, including members of the Secretariat. So thank you very much to all those who contributed, and of course the leadership provided by Council. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CEO. I actually had opened this page to acknowledge all of these people that you have just, acknowledged, because I do think that it's important that they are recognized, and it's important that the community knows who they are. You know, people that were behind this publication. Thank you so much to all of you. I think you've made a lot of points, you know, that are important. However, there are two that you know stayed in my mind. Let me just start with the correlation between STI and development. I think you spoke about it and you said that it's something that we are now starting to really advance. But importantly for me, what you said, which was very encouraging, was the emergence of the new character of the NSI. I think that's exactly what we want to see, you know. And even when we speak about the transformation that the minister talks about, I think that's the first step in the right direction. And I do believe that we will, as council, improve on that particular aspect. But that's very, very encouraging. And then there are many conversations, obviously, that we need to have, you've indicated. And those that came to mind, it's this issue of the Chinese and Indians, you know, filing more patents. And I think for me, it's a very close, you know, topic in the sense that, as you remember very well, that we did a study on patents and patents commercialization, wherein the minister had asked us to look at what are the critical issues insofar as patents are concerned. Why are we not getting the economic value that we need to get out of you know the patents that we produce in South Africa, and why are we not patenting as much as we should? So it's a very close topic for me. But I do think that there is a change, you know, from the West, you know, the Europeans filing more, now seeing the Asians, Chinese and Indians. And I think we need to do an investigation into that so that we understand why. What are the key dynamics so that we are in a position then to resolve. Now, the issue of venture capital, Chairperson, I think it's also something that is very close to your heart. The CEO has already indicated that there is diminishing you know, interest insofar as VC is concerned, but also it's also relocating to other countries. Why is that the case? You know, we need to delve deeper into that and really find you know, solutions to that. Having said that, colleagues, let us I think applaud, give the CEO the last round of applause for this presentation, which was very good. Thank you. I will now allow for questions, comments and inputs into the presentation. I see Dr. Lehutla, and then can we please have a mic? Can we start with Dr. Lehutla?
Chair, let me...
See, do you want to come closer here? Or you...
Chair, let me welcome the presentation, which is very provocative. And raising very crucial issues. Phil, who was the Director General here, served in government for 18 years. As a DG of Science and Technology. My apologies for this call. And he's not been able to infuse technology in government planning for the 18 years. And the Chinese ask us that question. Why have you not infused science and technology in the planning? And I've been statistician general there, I've seen. The question that I'm trying to raise is, what are we going to do? Because I listened to your presentation, Chair. Basically, you are sitting there as a National Planning Commissioner. It raises those issues. Do we have that level of consciousness in the National Planning Commission around the issues that are here? I don't know whether the National Planning Commission is here. I don't know whether the Minister of Planning is here. And if you look at the slide that you didn't show, which I think is very important, it's on page 120, SPI score, Social Progress Index. Foundations of well-being. opportunity, basic human needs. That itself, it had actually progressed, but turned from 2022 downwards. That for me is a threatening trend. And given the gravity of science and innovation in development, and I'm not sure whether the honchos in planning in government are here, what are we going to do? This is not a matter that we can nibble on. I mean, we are in serious, serious trouble. So I'm not asking the question, but I'm saying, what are we going to do? Now, I could actually show a slide there. That was very interesting because I analyzed the census data. It's a time machine, which shows very interesting trends. Encouraging trends, but depressing trends at the same time. From 1996, I've plotted that. And when you look at the girl child, how they are progressing, it's a very encouraging sign. I mean, they were lower all the time, they are higher now across the university completion degree. But the boys have stagnated. And we asked the question, what drove that? Was it the bringing a girl child to school? Was it something else? What caused that? So that we can start learning from it and then innovate and say, what are we going to do? Because the negative of that is boy child is stagnating. I could show that slide, but I'll share it at some time. So the question really is, I think we are playing marbles while Rome is betting. And the sooner we recognize that science is at the center of what we do, and move that to the center of discussion, of planning and planning itself, we are not going to win this battle. We cannot do it. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, Doc. There was a hand, I think, behind you. Let's just take that hand behind you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I don't know if I had to reintroduce myself. I'm the tax shop gentleman who's got an antivirus.
Yes.
But here's other questions. You know, I do commend your report. However academic and technical or technocratic it is, but it dwells more on the forward linkages of technological innovation and a little about the backward linkages of technology innovation. What feeds the technology and where does it come from? You know, the mining and mineralogy issues that are the input issues on the development of technology infrastructure. I mean, I can ask you a question about the Taiwanese chip war.
Yes, yes.
I don't know if you know about that, and it's coming. It will make Russia and Ukraine look like another tax shop. If it starts, and your innovation will stop instantly, because you won't get the chips to develop the computers and the technology that you want to develop. So it's the backward linkages that are a little bit short on the note here, and I wish to hear what your forward-looking statements are on that.
All right, thank you. I think we can take, there was a question this side, and then I'll come to Prof Rasigan. No, you can, before Prof Rasigan, there was a hand somewhere here. Before Prof Rasigan.
Yeah. It was here.
Okay. Yeah, all right, that's fine, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the NACI team for the comprehensive report and the other participants who contributed as well. I am Snangile Ngomezu from the Department of Transport. I actually wanted to perhaps reflect on the positive side of the report. One, I noted the increase of the female academics, the quantile performance of those schools from the perspective of STEM as well. But I wonder if it's just because we are limited by the nature of how we are doing this, perhaps we haven't engaged enough with the report itself. I think the first speaker touched on what I was just really concerned about to say. If we see the pocket of excellence, are we having enough data to say how did we get here? For the last 10 years, what did we do now that we've seen more female academics? Now we've seen that our quintile 5-level schools are doing better than the others. What have we done? If we were to regress today, are we able to reflect to say what is it that we did right and what can cause us to regress? Because at any given time, by the way the report is written, is like we just were lucky and we got this, and there is no reflection on how did you get here and how are we going to make sure that we improve or we even remain at this status quo. Just perhaps reflection on how we're going to maintain this status quo and reflecting on other gaps that we are noticing as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Prof. Rasigan.
Thanks very much, colleagues. I think we need to admire the fact that a lot of progress has been achieved in the quality of the report itself, that it's improved and expanded coverage. Is really important for all of us to get a better sense of what's taking place. But, well, you know, when you start saying positive things, you also know what's going to come after that. And this is really that we are reflecting on, and I see the Chief Executive blocked by the podium, so I'm not looking at his response. Yeah. We're dealing with data that's coming at us from 2022 in the main. There are occasions where data from 23, 24 is in the report as well. This is important in terms of at least bringing it closer to where we are at present. Right? But this temporality also raises a number of problems. And I want to raise these, you know, as in opening the discussion that we really need to have. It would be much deeper maybe than a dialogue, because it needs to even question what it is that we are questioning. What do I mean by this? Yeah? In some of those indicators, we get a sense of us achieving some progress against the goals we set for ourselves. Yeah? But to some extent, those aren't the goals themselves. They represent a compromise that was reached in engagement between the different parts of society. So in other words, you can think of them as the lowest common that we should have achieved. Yeah. The second part attached to that is, and you must excuse me because I think it was referenced earlier as well, the idea and the data that we have about our ecological precarity, for me, does not feature as strongly as it should. And the reason I'm raising this is because it's well and good for us to make achievement of targets of indicators. But if we can't breathe outside, what use is it? And why I'm raising it in that form, because it comes back to us to bite us, to ask the question, not just the quantities around transformation, but what are the qualities in transformation that we seek to achieve. The Minister mentioned just transition as an example. The object there is to respond to real challenges in real time. But in doing that, to achieve a forward movement for all of us. You know, I'm sorry, climate change is not going to come and check your demographics to realize it's going to flood your place or cause for you to be hungry today. It affects all of us, and these challenges need to be responded as a unity as South Africa. Sustainable development goals, Comrade Paddy, maybe we have a different view here, but this, from the report we've just seen, prepared for the General Assembly, shows failure globally. We've seen the handover reports between the two administrations about national planning. And where are we on those indicators? So, colleagues are raising this in a positive way. It may sound negative, but we need to bring together all of these facts that we now have available to us to have a seriously critical discussion about what its implications are. And I'm raising this also because we are unaware of the new governance regime. We may have met a minister speaking to us, but it's a minister inside something called a government of national unity. This is not the same in terms of what we've experienced post-Mandela's first GNU. So how does that impact on us being able to translate any of the facts that we have into practical responses? Yeah? So my last point, and sorry to be so long-winded about this, but it cannot be that if our target is 1.5% and we are accelerating in the reverse direction, that this is not foregrounded as the major challenge facing our system as a whole. If we are failing to generate knowledge itself, we are going to be the victims of others' knowledges placed on top of us. And we already have some evidence of that taking place. There are geopolitics at play, and these are not trivial politics. Our good friend that mentioned software, it's not just software that's being harassed in this process. It's intellectual property. Rules are being put in place by some countries to restrict the flow of information and knowledge. How do we as a community, as part of a global community, respond to such restrictions on the flow of knowledge? Because today, whereas it may be a particular victim of that sanctioned regime, being the People's Republic of China, tomorrow it can just as well be the Republic of South Africa as well. So we need to be quite careful about what these regimes are doing. Will this facilitate the type of qualitative benefits that we hope to achieve through science and technology? If we fail to respond to it, Chief Executive. Thank you for allowing me to raise.
All right, thank you so much. I will allow the CEO to respond. Once he's done that, then we'll go online. It looks like there are people that are online that have raised hands.
No, thanks, colleagues. So, Tina, please just check members as well of the team that worked with us to also feed some of these questions. For instance, Dave Kaplan, if he's on the call, can, once they are ready. Is Petros still here? Letaba, would you please, sorry colleague, I don't want to label as antivirus. So let me, so I want him to deal with the earlier questions you posed to the minister. So Petros, if you are able to address some of the questions he asked about the report and IT, he can repeat those questions. Let's start there.
Okay, good afternoon. The question of the software is too specific. I think the report tried to aggregate the information at a higher level. So you will see we talk about things like digitization, the emerging technologies, the role of digitization in manufacturing. But if we go at a software level, then the guys from mining will say, why don't you talk about the coal or other issues? So yes, we are aware of it. People in the technologies developing, the platform ecosystems. But once you talk about digitization, I think we are already accommodating those new trends that are happening.
Hlengiwe, there is a question of, well, I think we need to, let's acknowledge first again, you make a valid point about limited attention given to the sustainability question. Right, so we must first acknowledge that even the framework itself, we did identify as a major weakness. So this time our last, maybe Hlengiwe, this is also about you responding because you were given the responsibility to try and see what we can do. Just briefly on that question, what we try to do in the report itself.
No, thank you, CEO. So for the very first time in the report, we tried to deal with the issue of climate change and environmental sustainability. But because it was our very first time to try and unearth the issue, we couldn't get the data that could show trends over time. We ended up using patents with the view to say what is the readiness of South Africa to grapple with the issue of the just energy transition. So we use patents that speaks to issues of renewable energy. I must say this is the area that still needs to be built on over time, but at least we managed to show that South Africa, compared to other BRICS countries, we do have lots of potential in the area of solar energy. And in the next version of the report, we'll try to couple the issue of patents in the renewable energy space with other indicators, but taken together, the issue of climate change and environmental sustainability is the area that we will improve on over time in the report. Thank you.
My brother Jerry, please, because you've been in discussion with us, you are working with us, maybe just to share brief insights in what is emerging, what we may likely see in the next version at least. It's also about helping colleagues to
Thanks, Chief Exec. My name is Jarele Mwasa. Because it's a work in progress, I think the thinking around the sustainability question starts, especially with that link on the economy. So it's something that started in the financial sector, but more and more it's kind of spilling out into other parts of the economy. ESG, most of you might have heard that term or that acronym. It's on environment, society, and governance. And so that sort of is a framing around which we can start to develop very specific indicators, because within that is embedded the question of climate, as you were raising, and climate change, and what that means for the economy in the future, both from a risk perspective, but also from a developmental perspective, so that the energy, this just transition, which is largely focused on energy at the moment, right, towards hydrogen and other alternatives, means there's huge space for innovation there, and how far are we relative to the rest of the world. And then, but that's just one aspect, which is energy. The other aspects of it are around adaptation. How then are we adapting as a society? What technologies are there? What innovation is there? And then there's also the mitigation aspects, which we often talk about a lot of the time, which is what alternative energy sources we have. But someone from transport, for example, commented, and one aspect which is key that is often not spoken about is resilience. How resilient is our economy? How resilient is our science and technology and innovation systems? And how resilient is our economy to this changing environment? And those measures, for example, around infrastructure resilience and the different types of infrastructure we have to invest in, which then become a vehicle for innovation, are some of the aspects that we'll touch on. So I think we will take baby steps, because there's quite a lot that we can measure ourselves against globally. But again, going back to the question that was raised, is how intimately is the innovation system linked to economy and development? Because in there lies some of the questions, or some of the answers to the questions we'd like to pose.
Thanks. Is Kaplan on? Okay, please. Dave?
Thank you, Mlungisi. I'm not sure exactly what issues you would like me to address. I mean, there have been a lot of issues that have been raised, but I'm not sure which ones directly you would like me to address. But I think one, if I could just say, I think one thing that came very clearly in the Minister's speech, and I think that we all recognise, is the centrality of The fact, I think someone used the term, we are accelerating away from our 1.5% GDP GERD as a share of GDP target. I'm not sure that that's the right target, to be quite frank, but leave that aside. I mean, it is true, we are spending less of our share of GDP on research and development, and that's not a good trend. And the principal reason for that, as the Minister has said, and I think you've also said, Mlungisi, is the situation of the business sector. And so I think front and center of the problems that we have at the moment is that the business sector is not investing sufficiently in developing new products, entering new markets. We're not seeing more firms coming in, more technology-based firms, and then particularly we're not seeing that in the export sectors. And I raise the export sectors because when you think about technology and utilizing technology, a winning product or a winning firm, if you're going to win, and you've got a small economy as South Africa is, you're going to have to win on the international stage if you're going to have scale. So the sort of new firms, new products, new markets that are most important are on the export side. And here we have in the report very direct measures. Do we have lots of new exporters? No, we don't. Do we have a lot of our existing firms withdrawing from exporting? Yes, we do. Are we entering new markets? No, we're not. And so it's very clear that at least since 2017, there has been a decline. There's a decline in the number of new firms coming in, decline in the number of our new products, and decline in the competitiveness. So we measure the competitiveness, and this is all in the report, of South African firms. How many products are we competitive in? We've got that data, and we see a very, very clear trend. And as you said, Mlungisi, this is the overall trend. But there are some companies and there are some areas which are doing better than others. In other words, the trend is generally downwards, but it's not homogeneous. It's heterogeneous. There are other, and we are trying to do, NACI is trying to look at where are the winning firms, where are the sectors, and why is this happening. So more work needs to be done. But I think very centrally, we need to put that as an issue forward. So our trend hasn't been good. Of course, it's also very much related to the general environment that we're in. And I think it's clear that the general environment hasn't been good for investors, hasn't been good for business, but I think it's also clear that the environment is getting better. Russigan referred to the Government of National Unity. I think that's lifted things, at least to investors. And of course, the change in relationship to the electricity generator, the power story, has really moved in a very positive way. So I think there are some positives, some definite positives, and hopefully they will be reflected in the data that we collect next year, although these things tend to take time, right? There's not an immediate response. Things get better, investors immediately respond. Not quite like that. We see trends over time, and that's exactly why we need to gather annual data. Sorry, Mlungisi, that's probably a long response. I'm happy to answer any questions around the business, R&D issues, exporters, share of high-tech and medium-tech, employment or output, etc. But I'll leave it there. Thank you.
No, great, Dave. Is Vijay online? Vijay, would you please?
Yes.
Yes. There are questions about the stagnation of boy child, whether we know how we achieve gender parity.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the quantile story. Yeah. Carry on, Vijay.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity, Vijay Reddy. I was responsible for the part in the education and public understanding of science and skills. Dr. Pali's observation about the achievements of the girls within the schooling system and the lower performance of boys is well taken. The work that we have done in the past in the HSRC arising from the TIMS and other studies all corroborate his observation. So the question is, do we applaud the achievements of girls, or do we become very concerned about the poor performance of boys? Now, within the schooling system itself, we know at the senior levels, there's a high dropout rate of males from the system, which means that those that are poorer performers lead the system, and therefore the sort of better performers of the boys still remain. But within that environment, the girls are still outperforming boys. The girls are also, or females, I don't know which is the correct word to use, females also outperform the enrollments of females in the science, engineering, technology areas is still higher than that of males. Their performance is better. And while it's a wonderful story at one level about the educational achievements of girls, the concern is that we really have to pay attention to the dropout rates of males and the poor performance. But the story of that achievement reverses when we get to the labor market. Despite all the achievements in education, where in our own analysis of who the labor market participation shows very much that it is the males that occupy the higher profession, the levels of managers, professionals, etc. Sorry, that there is a vast gender differences within the labor market. So we have to look at this in a very nuanced way and look at the two systems differently. The other part that I want to refer to, and I think if I caught the question correctly, it was why is it that the Q1, 2, 3, 4 have risen in their performance? Now, of course, though, the one thing is that they all started from very low, the base level was very low, and it's wonderful that there's been this achievement, this improvement. Part of the speculation is that we don't know exact reasons because we haven't set up these randomized controlled trials. But part of the speculation is that post-1994 and the introduction of the many social protection policies, the social grants, the free schooling, etc., have all contributed towards these changes. Now again, we again applaud the improvements that have occurred, but we're concerned that if we look at the rate of improvement over time, that rate of improvement is decreasing. And so the challenge is then, how do we sustain the improvement, and how do we sustain that improvement, and how do we increase that improvement? Because at the rate of improvement that we have, we still won't be able to meet the targets that we've set for the country, for example, in the National Development Plan or in the medium-term strategic frameworks, etc. Okay?
Thank you very much.
I'll stop there, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, PJ. Stembiso is here. Or is he gone?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, on that slide 120, even though it was a positive, well, not positive comment, but an emphasis, but maybe you could make a point or two. And then if there is something you want to add on that, that municipality innovation index, so use the opportunity as well.
I will leave the slide on 120 to Aubrey here, and then I'll continue with this, the page 121 on Municipal Innovation Maturity Index. I think you presented it well, CEO, on the basis that there is a challenge when it comes to the way in which municipalities are performing. And that challenge is a problem in terms of service delivery, because I think it's a sphere, one that is close to people, and it's a sphere that we are looking for it when it comes to service delivery. but the issue of innovation, because we believe that it can be the one that can improve service delivery. But it seems to be not taken into consideration. I think I've made a point there in terms of, as I'm just highlighting here, because my thinking, CO to this is that if we want to understand the Municipal Innovation Maturity Index deeply, I think we may need to have in the future maybe a webinar in this, so that we can be able to discuss the framework and all others. But the point that I want to make here is on the basis that of the point that if you look at those results, it's very clear that most of the municipalities who participated are still at level 2. And then when you look at level 2, it means somehow that just just a minimal level of understanding of innovation. But with that minimal level of understanding of innovation, then it poses a challenge then in terms of those big goals, in terms of will it be possible for a capable state to be built? Will it be possible to respond to issues around innovation for inclusive development? Will it be possible also to try to address the issue of poverty, inequality, and also unemployment, which is a persistent? So the point I'm making to that is that we need to play a bit much more focus on that basis at the municipal level, because we need also to upload the team also on the basis that if you look at the national system of innovation, the issue around the local sphere of government has not been part of this report in most cases. So from where we are sitting, we need a note of support so that we can be able to mine this data in municipalities, so that even if there are intervention, there should be directed intervention when it comes to that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'm told there are people online that have raised their hands. Can we take those questions, please?
Thank you, Program Director. We have Rodwin. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if he's able to hear us, so if you can. Thank you, Program Director. We have a hand from Rodwin online. Rodwin, you can take to the platform as directed by the PD.
Program Director, I believe I inadvertently raised my hand, but anyway, I'm Rod Gruen from Department of Economic Development and Tourism in the Northern Cape, and I guess I just a comment to share. Many years ago, there was discussion on the innovation chasm, and at times I find that the conversation that we have at fora like this misses some of that gulf. I know the Minister talked about Mpumalanga and coal and just transition, and we face not necessarily a similar challenge, but if you look at our own ambitions to move to green hydrogen as a province, where's our skills? Where's our capacity? Where's our knowledge? Where are our systemic interventions that actually scaffold us into that green hydrogen arena? That system is not in place. No, we have pockets of activity that are happening, but there's no integrated developmental, almost synchronistic step-by-step approach. And I think the development plan tries to outlay that there, but it's so broad that we don't focus sufficiently to put the foundation in place. And maybe it does need a longer-term trajectory for us to actually get there. It does need us to have a fundamental paradigm shift, a fundamental mind shift in how we deliver education, in government's risk averseness. We want innovation, but we've got a constrained budget. We want innovation, but we're risk averse. Just at times it seems that there is still this existing innovation chasm between where we are and where we want to get to more broadly. Certainly for us in this room and in this launch, I'm not necessarily sitting in the Kaleshiwe, where we may not be thinking about how innovation impacts or affects their lives. And I just think there's a lot more work that we need to do. Thank you, Chair, and my apologies for raising my hand.
Thank you so much, Rodwin. Is there any other person, Tina, online? It was only him. All right, thanks. Maybe you can just close.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, colleagues. I'm asked to close. We take the comments, including the last one. You can tell people who've been around for a long time, so they charge them story. I think, colleagues, the national dialogue that the minister has called for, Chair, of course, we will still need to conceptualize it, but it should be able to deal with some of the issues that colleagues have raised. And we don't need to be responding to it. But the second point, some of the issues and questions that colleagues raise are not, even though they've been raised in the context of us presenting the report, but they are really about the system. Our job is to advise, is to share information. Each one of you see what you can do. And if there are gaps, if there's further research that must be done, we'll be happy if your entity or yourselves as individuals, you pursue some of those questions and then let us know. We can always engage and collaborate. Thank you very much. And then we also thank those who joined us online. And thank you very much, colleagues. We don't take for granted your support that you continue to give us. And Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and members of council, and we have new ones who have joined us. We really appreciate. All the best, colleagues. Thank you. Program Director, you can close.
Thank you, CE. I'm not going to take long. All that I wanted to just say is that I have been a member of council for the past 4 years, and I must really commend the team for the work that has been put in place. Honestly speaking, there is so much information, there's diversity in terms of information, indicators, new indicators as you've spoken, sustainability indicators, there's municipality indicators, a lot more indicators that are coming to the fore. It is becoming more and more comprehensive, and I think it's dealing with most of the real issues that we are facing in the innovation space. So I'm really thankful to you, CEO, and also to the rest of the team. I just want to take you to the forward by the chairperson. I'm not going to say, I think he's already wrapped up, and I'm just going to read it to you. He says, the report highlights both progress and challenges in South Africa's NSI. Looking ahead, it is essential that we prioritize inclusive innovation, address regional disparities, and foster collaboration among stakeholders to unlock South Africa's full innovation potential. And having said that, I want to thank all of you, the stakeholders. Special thanks to the experts, to the team that put the report together, to everyone who has been advising, those that were in the reference group, everyone else who has been advising, assisting in terms of some insights into the report. And special thanks to the chairperson of NACI, and also the CEO, and also council members for their contribution to this work. Thank you, till we meet again next year. And in between, we will meet again for that Transformation Agenda Summit that the Minister has called for. Thank you very much. Bye.